greetings to the board members of the Maya Gold Foundation, to the teens who are part of the Youth Action Team, to teens who are here because you're curious about life ahead, what's to come after high school. Greetings to volunteers, parents, grandparents, step-parents, step-grandparents, community members, young adults who have or are in the process of launching. I'm still curious about what launching means, but we'll find out. And a special greeting to Nari. Nari is here from Nepal via New York City, and she's here for this program and the weekend. My name is Elise Gold, and along with my husband, Matthew Swerdlov, we co-founded the Maya Gold Foundation in late 2015. After our daughter, Maya, tragically took her life. She was 15, a sophomore at New Paltz High School. We knew that grief is always going to be with us, and while holding that grief, we needed to do something. So we established this nonprofit, the Maya Gold Foundation, whose mission is to empower youth to access their inner wisdom and realize their dreams. Today's program, the launch, is one way we're going to hear some young adults who are realizing their dreams. I want to let you know that everything that we do at the Maya Gold Foundation is with teens at the table, and in a couple of moments, we'll hear from Sophie and Mackenzie as far as how they, on the Youth Action Team, speak their voice, and we really lean on them and the others. Thank you, all the Youth Action Team members who are here. One question before I turn it over to them. And actually, Mala, can you just look around and scan the group? We want to find out how you heard about this event. So I'm going to put out some criteria. So if you heard from a friend or a peer, can you just raise your hand about this event? Okay, good. You heard from friends and peers. That's a good number of you. Good work, word of mouth people. If you heard from an adult, raise your hand. Okay, thank you. A couple there. Social media. We are active on all the platforms that I know of anyway. A flyer or a postcard. Okay, great to know. School announcements. Fascinating. And any other ways that you found out about today's event? Family, great, got it. Thank you. Thank goodness for family, for lots of reasons. So we'll hear a few words from Sophie and Mackenzie, who are going to tell us about how they got involved, how this community program came to be, and how you might be able to be involved in the future.
So I discovered the Maya Gold Foundation through a course called Teen Mental Health First Aid, which had a very large variant in talking about how to help a friend who's struggling with depression, to how to safely help somebody who's dealing with an overdose. And I really want to become more prominent in this foundation, and I did so by joining the Youth Action Team. And I'm from Woodstock, so I had to make the commute to New Paltz, which sometimes was a challenge, but it was so worth the knowledge and resources I gained by going.
So a big reason why I got involved in the Maya Gold Foundation is that it allows teens to further participate in and really make an effect in their community. And especially since teens' voices are so respected and appreciated through their work on various committees. And so each Youth Action Team member serves on at least one committee. The Community Programs Committee is responsible for creating this event. And we started out with over a dozen topics, including drug abuse, body image issues, and mental health.
So finally, after so much energy and in-detail planning, this event is very near and dear to us because in a way our teenage years were stolen from us due to the pandemic. So this conversation will help us navigate the path ahead of us.
So there are many different ways that you can get involved in the My Gold Foundation, the Youth Action Team and the Community Programs Committee being one of them. And if you're interested in getting involved, our applications are open until May 20th, and there's a QR code in your pamphlet.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sophie and Mackenzie. So I'm going to again echo, the Youth Action Team application is open now through a week from today, and the QR code is inside your program for that. And if you didn't pick up a program yet, there's plenty to pick it up on the way out. Other ways to get involved, please join our mailing list. We don't bombard you with mailings. We just send out one email newsletter a month, and it keeps you up to date with what we do. Join us on social media. Make a donation. There's a donation box on the table. Volunteer, there's a lot of opportunities. And if you're interested in joining us on our next trip to Nepal, it's scheduled for the spring of 2024. Applications are going to be open on our website as of July. Events like this don't just happen. No, it takes a lot of planning and it takes a village, and I want to thank members of the board, especially Chair Sarah Espinosa, Chair not of the board but of the Community Programs Committee, for clarification. We have lots of volunteers, but the volunteers for this particular program include Mala Hoffman, Linnea Mason, who really helped out a lot with the food, Monica Graff, amazing photographer, and Sarah Snow, who designed our program and does a lot of amazing graphic design. Emma Murphy, rock star, program consultant, the glue. The Youth Action Team members, the Denison Theater, who graciously donated the space to us. So Harry Lipstein is like founder, but Kirsty Gockel, who is, I'm forgetting her title, managing director or something, just really has worked with us to pull this all together. And a special, if you have younger siblings or no youth in your life who might want to take place in a puppetry and animation workshop here this summer, that might be fun for them. Also, there's a film festival here in July. And Hudson Valley Real Estate Genies sponsored this program, so if you're selling or buying a house, give them your support. Also, Lynn Nyquist of the Nyquist Foundation, who very graciously, generously donated funds on numerous occasions, but this year we were awarded a grant to help purchase that gorgeous tent out front. I'm coming to the end of my part. Our event is going to be moderated by Sarah Espinosa. The word conversation is in the title, Real Lunch, Real Talk about the path ahead, a conversation about life after high school. When you hear the word conversation, what do you think that means? Well, this is not a conversation if I'm just talking. Back and forth, that's right. So we're going to hear a lot from the young adults, but there's a couple of ways that we can hear the back and forthness of this all. There's a QR code on the back here. During the event or near the end, the program, scan that QR code and we'll be accepting your questions, comments. You could direct it to a specific panelist or the group. We'll be doing this for about 40 minutes or so. Then we're going to break it up and poof, turn this into a food table and invite you to mingle, especially with the panelists. You can have, your questions answered or some discussion and each other, and also take a moment to pick up some information from our information tables. And I'm going to close by just saying deep love and gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elise. I'm going to use my theater voice as much as I can. Again, my name is Sarah Espinosa, and I am a member of the Board of Directors of the My Gold Foundation. As has been mentioned, I serve as the chair of the Community Programs Committee, which again is the group that really was responsible for putting together the event today. So thank you, all of you Community Program Committee members out there in the audience. In my professional life, I serve as the executive director of a private foundation in New York City, and our focus is on making sure that low-income women have opportunities to complete college and get that all-important college degree. It's really my pleasure to be here with you all today. Graduating from high school is a big deal. Turning the page. Just note how big these are. This is just your future, young people. Big fonts. As emerging adults, you are in the thick of a transitional moment. A shift in your identity, a change in your surroundings perhaps, a redefining of your role in society, and the expectations that others have of you. It's truly a rite of passage that brings a mixed bag of emotions. One may feel excited, uncertain, fearful, anxious, jubilation, discomfort, sadness, anticipation, elation. All of that stuff is truly, truly normal at this point in their lives. Our goal for today is to come together, as Elise mentioned, in conversation about how to navigate this transition. In service of that, we have invited some awesome panelists, no pressure, but yes, awesome people, that have, each has charted their own path, if you will, after high school. And they're here today to talk about their own personal journey and share some wisdom with you that they've gained from that. So I'm going to take a moment and introduce them to you. There's more detail in the programs, I believe, the bio for each of the panelists. But let's start with Alexa. Alexa Floresta is an artist and local business owner. She says that the best advice her mother ever gave her was, don't dream it, do it. And she strives to live by that each and every day. Up next, Maddox Shaper. He's a graduate of Valley Central High School and currently a junior at Duke University. He says his personal superpower is that he is such a heavy sleeper, he literally could sleep through a rock concert. Let's see if that's true. Our next speaker is Stephanie Zambrano. She's a creative entrepreneur and a mother of 3. One of said children is in the audience right there, rocking it. Stephanie says that the most influential person in her life is her father. Isela Fabureta was born and raised in Southern California. Enrolled at Lehman College in the Bronx, she says that her current obsession is Mexican music, both old and new, as it keeps her grounded in her roots as she studies and pursues higher education. Thomas Bauer-Gluckman is a creative director from New Paltz. He's pursuing a career in the music industry. He says that if his life had a theme song, it would be Thunder by Roy Blair. Check it out, it's a great tune. Nina Tucker, last but not least, is a local educator, organizer, and scholar. She says that her favorite book of all time is Toni Morrison's Resuscitate. There we go. Thank you. I just want to say thank you, all 6 of you, for being here today and for giving of your time and sharing your wisdom and your expertise and some of the questions that you may still have about your own journey ahead. All right? So we're going to get started. As has been mentioned, and again, I'm not going to necessarily be tied to the microphone. If that's okay, if folks can't hear me, let me know. We have a few questions, and I'm going to start by saying that we are all products of our lived environment. We know that. Often the choices we see as available to us after high school are influenced by family structure, parental expectations, economics, cultural views and norms, geographic limitations, peer pressure, all sorts of things. Whether or not we're conscious of it is another factor. So I want to start with, let's see, who will be my first victim? Alexa made the mistake of making eye contact. So I would love, again, for each of you to just take a moment and respond to this particular question. But we'll start with Alexa. What choices did you make after high school that got you to this point in your life? And what do you think informed those choices?
It's funny because I was thinking back to what I was doing in my life when I was a senior in high school, and I was like, God, you know, I was thinking about it, I'm like, a senior in college? I'm like, no, high school. You have to think back to how scary that was and how, oh my God, what's next? What's going to happen? And I remember having these grand plans, and I thought, you know, I had this idea of success, and I had to like move to the city and go to some private art school, and I knew I wanted to pursue creative ventures. And I remember my parents saying, you know, we'll support whatever decision you make, but these are going to be your student loans. Like, you're going to have to pay these back. And then when you're young like that, I feel like money, at some point, when you're comparing state schools or private schools, it's hard to even imagine, A, I'm going to ever have to pay this back, and B, at some point it just becomes numbers with more zeros on the end, and you have no concept of like, I still to this day, I feel like I have no concept of how it works, but I made the decision of going to a state school. I went to SUNY New Paltz, and I honestly feel like that was one of the best starting decisions after high school that I made, because it provided me with the opportunity to explore so many different people and activities, whereas I feel like if I went to a school that just specialized in maybe a creative medium that I was interested in, I would have been really limited to that. So I met all different kinds of people that studied and were interested in, you know, many different subjects and many different things, and they've become lifelong friends and people that I consider family in my life, and have been with me through my whole career at this point. And in the beginning stages of opening up my shop, they were there at the opening and supporting me, and a lot of them are my collaborators. So I think that early decision of, you know, where I was going to move next and what I was going to do, and prioritizing building meaningful connections was something that was really important to me. So, yeah. I love making new friends.
Hard to believe. Hey, Maddox, what do you think?
You know, I can hop in now. So I guess when I was in high school, and I always loved learning, and I always envisioned myself going to college. I think like the opportunity that like college provides and the doors that it opens, kind of like more optionality, I think, when you have a college degree. So that was kind of always my plan. And so I also kind of influenced by my parents and encouraged to go to school. Something that kind of led my decision making. Definitely I hear though of like people that like drop out of school and they do like a startup, and it's like really fascinating. Like, you don't have to go to school to be highly successful, and I think like that should be known. So I decided to go. I went to Duke University. I think Duke definitely is the network that it provides of both like when you're in college, like you have like the network of the people you meet, like your fellow peers, but also the alumni. And I think it's really important to leverage like those resources. So like when I was trying to decide what I wanted to do after school, I really relied on like upperclassmen that in the clubs that I joined and spoke to them, and also like reaching out to alumni and talking to them, and kind of hearing, okay, they're in this field doing this role. Can I see myself in their shoes, or would I want to be in their position? I think it's really important to focus on like the people, and like the people you meet at the college is probably the most important thing. Not necessarily the classes. I mean, learning is important, but I think the most that I've gained from school is definitely the people and the network. Yeah.
It's interesting actually that both you and Alexa talked about sort of the most meaningful aspect of college too was the connections that you made.
Right, you're having an experience, I
Yeah.
think, and
And being part of the community.
right, building
Right.
community, I think,
Right.
is just the key to success in general.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thomas, what do you think?
Yeah, so I had a little bit of a different experience. I grew up here in New Paltz, but I was also chronically online. I spent a lot of time on the internet, and that ended up becoming my community. I never ended up going to college, and I just ended up leveraging different connections and people that I met online and on the internet, and that kind of just became my community that I formed. Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, that's just, it's another avenue, right? That's available to us. Istela, what do you think?
Well, I definitely agree with them. I am so involved in my community at school. You can ask my parents. I am never home, and I come home so late because I'm always so involved in school. Creating that sense of community has led me and kept me in college. I don't think I had plans on going to college, and thank God I did, because I've created friends that will be family forever. I've created different opportunities for myself by having that sense of community and people to reach out to and lean on, because it's not easy going through college and transitioning into adulthood. But when you have a sense of community, when you have someone that you can say, hey, this is what's going on, what should I do? Or this is what's happening, do you have any suggestions? It makes it a bit easier, and it helps in the long run.
So you mentioned that you weren't necessarily planning on going to college. What was the tipping point for you that made you decide to go to school?
Having somebody that kept their hands behind my back and pushed me to do it, to apply. My mother was a big, let me not do that. My mother was a big influence on that, and also an old coworker of mine, an older lady, who has been the reason also why I continued my higher education to doing my bachelor's. And this time she doesn't need to push me. As I'm going to graduate with my bachelor's this upcoming summer, I myself am going to be applying for my master's because it's something that I want and something that I know I need.
Lovely. So speaking of pursuing higher ed, Nina, do you want to talk a little bit about your journey and what informed those choices that you made?
Yeah, I can do that. Hi, everyone. Can I also do like a quick vibe check? For those of you in the audience, if you feel comfortable, like close your eyes, and I'm just gonna ask a question and ask you to raise your hand. So if you feel okay. For the high schoolers in the room, raise your hand if you are going to college or plan to continue your education. Raise your hand if you're like pursuing something that is alternative to education, but you feel like there's a path that you're following. And then the last question is like, I have no idea if I'm going, like, maybe I'm going to college, maybe I'm not, but also maybe I am going to college, but I still have no clue what I'm going to do there. Okay, cool. So kind of combining your original question and also where the conversation has gone. I think that when you are in high school and also like just barely an adult, right? Like there's so many things that you don't get to make decisions about, and those are what really form your decisions. In my experience, I did not have a choice if I got to go to college or not. My parents are like, I'm like, can we curse here? Not like in...
What's said here stays here.
Yeah, right, like it's a safe space. But like my parents busted their ass and they were like, you have to, like this is what you have to do. And if you want to do something else, you have to come up with a plan, right? And I was like, I don't know, I'm 18, like I can't come up with another plan, so I'm gonna go to college. And for me, it was really incredible because I did love school and I had the privilege of like enjoying that process, whereas for many people in my life, it's not positive. But I think that what was the most important decision for me was to keep my options open, right? Like I had this thing that I was telling my parents, and I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. And then of course there was like what was in my heart, which was like fear and like questioning and being like, I don't know what I'm gonna like in a few years, right? Like when I'm 22 and I get out of school, it's gonna be like so different. So I feel like a huge part of what got me to where I am today is allowing myself to say like, and not or, and giving myself the freedom like as a young person to be like, how do I just set myself in a position where I can make more choices, right? Not so much like, how do I make the choice that's right, but like, how do I continue to keep my options open? For me, a lot of that was through school. It was also through like working. I worked like a lot of jobs, and that allowed me to like form a lot of connections and a lot of community that like the other panelists were talking about. But ultimately it was school, and I did end up going to higher education as well, and that proved to be really fruitful.
Yeah, really nice. I just noted that you used the word options, and that was something that Maddox talked about as well, sort of wanting to make sure that you're putting yourself in a position to have future opportunities, right? And choice in them and what those opportunities are. So, Stephanie, what do you think?
Yes. Hi guys. Sorry, I'm a little bit shy. Thank you for the vibe check. So my journey was a lot different from everyone else's. Everyone has dreams. I wanted to become a lawyer. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but I was a young mom. So I wasn't, I dropped out, and I didn't get to make, sorry. I never really have this conversation, guys, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
So I was a young mom, so I didn't have the experience of getting to graduate or walk the stage or going through that process. I had to grow up fast. And like you were saying, family structure. My parents were getting a divorce at that time. A lot of it was like falling on me. Mm-hmm. So, I didn't really have my parents at that time. I was forced to grow up. I took care of my brothers, and I didn't put my schooling first. But with that, I say it doesn't mean that I'm unsuccessful. I do have 3 kids. I feel like I'm a great mom. I'm an entrepreneur. I went through vocational. I was self-motivated. My children gave me the motivation. I was self-motivated. I still went to get my diploma. I still went to trade school. I was valedictorian at my trade school. And, you know, life for me was different. It was tough, but so many people admire me. They see things in me that I didn't see in myself. So, yeah, I came a long way. I consider myself an entrepreneur. I do realty on the side. I'm in the beauty industry. I did healthcare for 8 years. Yeah, so my journey doesn't look like everybody else's, but I wouldn't say that I'm unsuccessful. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. And let's just point to one of your successes, which is sitting over here.
Can we?
I mean, seriously, and I think like the key piece that I think we all agree on is that we all have different journeys and different paths, and the beauty, it's important not to necessarily compare your own with others. You can be informed by or inspired by others and the choices that they make, but
Right.
those are your choices, you own those choices, and you
Right.
have success with that.
Can we please pause for a round of applause?
Yes.
And I think,
I'm sorry for being a crybaby.
that's awesome. I feel like we do need to redefine sort of like how we think of success. Like I think like when we were graduating high school, it was like that's all people did if you had to go to college. And now I think it's awesome that younger generations are thinking like, is this something I want to do right away? Do I want to spend this money on something that I'm not really sure about? What do I want? And I think that it's great to think about these things. The fact that you're here right now already shows that you're like, let me get out there and ask some questions and actually do some research and think about, what do I want in life? And I think that that's like a great question to keep with you forever, because I think it's a hard thing to think, what does anyone want? You know what I mean? So I think like experiences are success. And, you know, growth and like allowing yourself to grow, that's success. So it's not always just about a diploma or a piece of paper, although it can be. But yeah.
It's finding what's right for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Finding joy.
Does anybody have any more thoughts about that? I think that's a
At
great
your own
point.
time and at your own pace. There's no certain finish line or timeline that you have to follow, and that is so important to remember. Just because your friends are doing this at this time of their life doesn't mean that you need to. You do it when you're ready and when you feel is best for you.
Right, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about life transitions, because they're inherently difficult, right? Can you talk a little bit, you know, at whatever level is comfortable for you, about maybe some obstacles that you faced and sort of rolling out your path, if you will? What some of the challenges you may have experienced and how you work to overcome those? So Thomas, I'm gonna start with you if that's all right.
Yeah, a huge part of, I left high school, I think a week after I graduated, I left my hometown a week after I graduated high school. Two. Thanks, Mom. And, for me, I just threw myself in the deep end. I moved out to LA. I had no money. I had no real opportunity. I had a couch to sleep on. And, it was just really life. It was just raw life. And it was coming from, little New Paltz and small high school, small town. And it was just straight to a big city. So, putting myself in that position really forced me to grow up instantly because there was no other option. And it wasn't something I was willing to let go either. So, yeah.
Were you surprised by how you responded to that and your resilience? What surprised you about yourself in that?
I don't necessarily think I was surprised because it was something I had really wanted. Anybody who knows me knew I didn't really go to school the last year of my high school. I did everything I could to not go because I knew I needed to do something else. So it was. I think life is very surprising. I think there's a lot of surprising things that go on. but that's also life, right? So, yeah.
What do you think, Maddox? Like when you think about some of the challenges or something that you may have been surprised by when you made the move to Duke?
Yeah, no, definitely. In high school, I felt like I was very much like a big fish in a small pond. And then when I got to Duke, there were so many smart, like intelligent, like talented people, and I felt like there's this common thing. It's called imposter syndrome, and it's very much like, do I belong? Am I good enough to be here? And it's definitely like, because like you're used to being like classes are easy, and then I get to Duke, and it's like, oh, this is hard. This class is hard, and that was something I hadn't really experienced. And then so kind of like focusing on myself and growing myself and being successful like on my standards, and not maybe comparing myself to someone else who is a genius. So I think that's really important, is like not to compare yourself to others and to focus on improving yourself tomorrow from what you are today. I think that's kind of like my advice there.
Well said. Yeah, absolutely. And just so you know, that imposter syndrome, I mean, you feeling me? It happens, later in life as well. Sort of wonder at what point will they figure it out that I don't know what I'm doing. Isela, what do you think in terms of some of the obstacles or challenges that you may have experienced? You want to talk about this?
So when I think about the obstacle that has gotten me to this point, I say it was how some of the experiences I grew up in, and how that affected me growing up. I grew up, I like Sarah mentioned in my bio, I grew up in Southern California, and in fewer short words, I grew up around unfortunate circumstances with drugs and stuff like that, and that impacted my childhood, but for the better, it pushed me to continue wanting to be somebody in life, and I can say that has definitely pushed me to be a better person. Having role models as my mother and my father have also pushed me to continue helping myself to get to where I want to be. My childhood isn't me. I am a new person. I am creating my own path, my own story. I'm gonna be who I want to be, and yeah. I like to remind myself I'm healing my inner self, the child within me, by doing what I want to be, and doing that I want to be a teacher. I want to work with kids. So that's it's all tied in all together.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Stephanie, what are you thinking when we talk about obstacles or challenges? You were so gracious in sharing some of your feelings about your journey, but do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I definitely had a lot of challenges having a newborn baby in high school. I think one of the challenges was not having the support. Not having someone to push me to just give me that vision, which now, me, the mom I am now, I'm like, I have a 14-year-old, so that's the baby. I am on him. Like, you're going to college, I don't want to be controlling, but I know that as teens, you don't really know the way you think you do. I thought I knew things. I thought I just had everything figured out and I've got this, but you really don't. I've had like 10 different lives since then, and at that time it was a negative for me, but it's a positive in the mom that I am today. You guys need that support. You guys need that motivation. You guys need someone to just encourage you, to let you know that there is life beyond what you know. But yeah, that was the challenge that I've experienced, was the support, not having the support. So I was self-motivated.
Were you surprised by that? Were you surprised with your ability to rise up?
Yes, because it was out of nowhere. It was out of nowhere. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make this happen. I'm not gonna sit there and just let life knock me down. You're judged when you're a young mom. You're judged. People look at you and they already think they know your life, your story, but they really don't. And I feel that, you know, my children motivated me. I work hard for my children. I want to give them a better life. I want them to never have to struggle the way that I did. I want to be their biggest fan. I want to see them graduate, you know, whether they go to college or they don't. I'm okay with that, but I just want them to walk down that stage. You know, after that, life, you know, I'm there every step of the way. You know, I'm gonna celebrate every win or loss, and that's what you have to do. Yeah, they said life isn't a race. Life isn't a race. Everything has its timing, and I feel that we have the pressure of wanting everything all at once. Life isn't a race. We're not ready for some things at that age. I'm learning now that the things that I'm getting now that I wanted before, I was preparing that whole time for what I have now. You know, we need to have the wisdom to maintain, not just to get. So everything has its timing. There's no rush. You know, live life, travel. You know, life is a journey. You know, and I wish somebody would have told me that. You don't have to have your life together by the age of 30.
Right.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nina, do you have some thoughts about that? Or?
I have many thoughts. I think that I really, like, so much of what's been said is resonant. And I also think that for me, I was a person who definitely thought I had it figured out, or at least was like making decisions that made adults tell me that I had things figured out. And for me, what that ended up looking like was like going full speed ahead for a long time in a certain direction, and then getting to a point where I was like, okay, I can't do this thing that I have been telling everyone I'm gonna do. Which I'm very thankful like wasn't negative, and I, like I was saying before, I kept my options open so I could kind of like pivot. But it was this really real experience where, to get specific, like I wanted to teach as well and like really love education. But upon getting into the final years of that major, I had to, essentially you have to student teach. Like y'all remember when like there's student teachers in your classroom, so that was me. And the place that I was at was a school that was in receivership, which meant that there's a lot of like legal interference, and it creates a really stressful environment for kids. And I think that that's something that I was expecting, but when I realized how visceral my reaction was to like administration, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get fired. Like if I become a teacher, like it's not gonna work out. So I kind of had to have this real moment where I was like, okay, I can either continue to like stifle that feeling and grow in a way that really supports like what I've been told is stability and like health insurance and like really moving in a way that I was told was secure, but I would be miserable and I would be in a position where I knew that it was not something that would bring me joy ultimately. And having the opportunity to shift direction was really powerful, even if it was scary. And I was very thankfully able to get all of the stability that I thought I couldn't have if I had changed paths. So I think that transition in of itself often feels like adversity, and it feels like this really intense situation, which is unfortunately naturally part of the college process, or like moving into college process. But it really does create such a deeper understanding of like yourself, and that deeper understanding is what's most important, because as much as you don't know what's going on right now, or like you might feel really sure about certain things, the future is in fact something that you can't control, and it's most important to just feel secure in yourself right now, because like that's the foundation for who you're going to be in the future, right? So all you can really do is move with the intention and the knowing of who you are now, and hope to just like continue to stay clear and do the things that bring you joy and keep you safe.
I love that. I think we need to give her some props on that. There's a notion there around sort of building and refining that internal compass so that you really are able to weather what sort of your life unfolds in front of you, right? I appreciate that. Thank you. Alexa, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? And you sort of started that theme there, but.
I know, I keep getting lost as to like what I'm saying. I'm like,
What did I say already? Did I repeat myself? I think that the ongoing struggle of life is just like getting out of your own way. Like believing in yourself. And I feel like the imposter syndrome, I feel it all the time. And I'm out here faking it till I make it. And I'm telling you, like, I'm like, we all have these like intrusive thoughts. And I think you just like need to consistently through life like build your self-love, because it's the foundation for everything. Like you need to love yourself. Like it will heal the world. I'm not even kidding. I feel like that's our biggest, you know, problem as a society, is like people really just like don't love themselves. And it's like, that's, I think, well, that's the best advice that I can give, honestly, I feel like. And it's just like, I think, yeah, it's an ongoing life thing. So that's what I think the struggle is.
Yeah, I think that's very true. It's the whole hurt people hurt kind of thing.
Right.
So with that, we've spent some time talking about sort of the look back, asking the panelists to be reflective of the choices that they have made. I would love to hear a little bit, sort of flip the script, if you will, sort of thinking ahead. So, you know, the choices that you've made, they lead you to a place, right? And you know, I think we all recognize that in life you have to pivot. You may discover that this isn't actually the dream that I thought it was going to be. So I would love to hear from each of you how you think sort of the life choices that you've made this far sort of are preparing you for your future, and sort of how you can lean into that future and what that might look like for yourself. Does anybody want to volunteer to start? Or do you want me to? Maddox.
I can take it, yeah. I feel like my future is very much like uncertain. I'm still a sophomore in college. I'm still figuring out what I want to do in the real world, like outside of school. I feel like definitely, like you think that college is very much like, you feel like you're almost in a little bubble, like as well. And it's very much like you're not in the real world yet. So I feel like I'm still trying to figure it all out. But I guess like thinking about how my decisions are like, oh, sorry, I'm kind of getting lost.
No. You're actually, sort of, let me read what I wrote.
Yeah.
How do you think your chosen path has prepared you for your future?
Okay.
And can I just say,
Yeah.
I'm 53 years old, and I don't feel like I know exactly what my next step is in life. I mean, I think the reality is you don't have to have your script written. So, agree.
Yeah, no,
So that makes you feel any better.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I feel like trying new things and like shooting your shot at different opportunities, and kind of that's really important. And maybe if you make a decision, it doesn't necessarily turn out what you think is the best outcome, but like you failing or like making a mistake, like you learn from that. And I think every decision that you make is an opportunity to grow. And I think you should view it like you're moving forward, and not necessarily like if you don't get what you want right away, I think you just need to like continue moving forward. And even if you don't really know exactly where that will be, I think that's just like an important, I guess.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think we all could probably, or for some of us, it may resonate, the whole notion of failure being sort of the best teacher, right? Thomas, do you want to talk a little bit about sort of where you see your next, sort of your path sort of leading you to?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've learned to have no expectations. The more expectations you have, the more centered on a certain mindset you have, and then you become lost very quickly because you think that that's the goal, and the goal might change. Literally a year and a half ago, I was living on the West Coast and running a completely different company than what I'm doing now. And like at the end of it was actually 4 years, ironically, like a college thing, but of running that company for 4 years, I sold it and got rid of it, and I moved back to Brooklyn, and it's a whole new thing now. I thought I was going to do that for the rest of my life, and everything's changed now. So it's just living life on your toes, you know, being ready for any change and not having expectations for what's going to happen.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I also think that's sort of the notion that I think I've sort of talked about is sort of being open to opportunities, sort of leaning into opportunities and saying yes perhaps more than you say no. Nina, do you have some thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think saying yes is good. I say no all the time. And I highly, I think it's like, I'm also a planner, and it's like, this struggle that we always have, kind of like what Alexa was saying earlier, where it's like you get in your own way. And like the first job I wanted as a kid was like literally president. Like I was like, I'm trying to like run this. And it's like, once you start to loosen that grip, it can kind of go full tilt, right? And I think that that's also what's scary, is that like once your world starts to open up, you're like, okay, there's like so many options. So I think it's really about like staying in tune with yourself, but also like knowing what you want more and less of, right? Like at the beginning of the year when you're like more or less lists, checking in with yourself about that is important, because I remember when I would be like waitressing or something, and at one time, like the most important thing to me was like not working Labor Day. I was like, whatever I need to do to not be working as a waitress Labor Day weekend next year, like that's what I'm gonna do. And like it was silly, but in reality, like those little things are what push you to be like, okay, I'm gonna leave like this service job or like this internship or like this situation that like I can't necessarily say like what I want in this small stepping stone, but I know that like I never want to work service for Labor Day again. And like that's a really big achievement in reality, right? Because it becomes this thing that you can like always do or fall back on. So I think that it's about making these movements forward in faith and in like thinking from a place of abundance. Not to get like too woo-woo, but like it's really, I think part of it is that like you have to trust yourself, because if you don't trust yourself, you won't put the work in to be the version of yourself that you trust, right? Like you really have to like bet on you and then be the person who follows through. And like whatever capacity you reach, like you'll learn to cope with it and like you'll keep it pushing, but as long as you're moving forward, like you're doing the right thing.
What do you think, Gisela, in terms of the experiences that you've had in your life and the choices that you've made? How do you think they prepare you for your future?
So the choices that I've been making now, the way they're impacting my future is positively. I have, in my mind, I've said, I really want to live a happy life. Like, that's just my main goal. So every decision that I make, it's headed that way, like towards more of like a happiness, a happy, peaceful life. I know that that's not to say unrealistic, that life happens, things happen. We're not always going to be flowers and dandelions, but some decisions that you can make and shape, that's really up to you. And it's like a mental, not expectation, because yeah, like you said, expectations lead to disappointment sometimes. But having a set of expectations within yourself could help you. Staying organized while you're on a journey is very important also. Yeah. Did that answer the question? Okay.
And there's no right or wrong
I know.
answer to the question, yeah.
The question I was just trying to think
No,
that
that's
the happiness. I know that sounds so like God, but that's basically like how I think of it. I want to just live a happy life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think that we all want that for ourselves and for each other.
Yeah.
What do you think, Stephanie?
Yeah. I think that for me, I just turned 30, so it's like my better 20s already. I feel that you have to just spread your wings and fly. Like they said, the experience is gonna lead you to knowing what you want, what you don't want, what you like. You know, in my 20s, I want to say that I was like a yes person. Yes, 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 yes. I just turned 30. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to tolerate this. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to pick up tomorrow and travel here. And I'm only the person I am today because of everything that I've been through. Can you read your question?
No, that's perfect. I mean, I think that actually is a great point, that we're all sort of it's accumulation, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
So,
we accumulate these experiences, and that helps to sort of shape who we are if we're self-reflective and aware of, sort of our own personal growth.
yes. And one more thing that I want to say is something that I have been doing because of TikTok. I heard Steve Harvey say, write down 300 things, 300 things of how you want to see your life within the next year. And every morning you'll get up and you'll go through your list, and then you'll start check marking everything that has happened. So that's something that has helped me lately. Who do I want to be? What do I want to become? And where do I see myself within the next year? So, yeah.
Some thoughts, Alexa?
I do, because I like that idea. Like, I love making lists for like short-term and attainable goals.
Yeah.
And like, how do I want to spend my days? I feel like it's like the ultimate question. Like, it's not, I think that it's so daunting to be like, what do I want to be when I grow up? It's like, I don't think anyone could really answer that, but it's like, how do I want my day structured and how am I going to make this happen? So when I graduated from college, I started working in a restaurant, and to this day, I'm like, that was one of the greatest things to ever happen to me. And it's like, kind of, well, you know, why would that be? But it's like, I got to spend my day. I went into work at 4 o'clock, I made money to support myself, and on the side was able to like spend my days doing what I wanted to do. And I was like making pillow pals and zines and painting, you know, paintings and figuring out what I wanted to do. But you know, I really appreciate that time, and I think that that was so important to getting me to where I am now. And you know, taking little steps. It's like, try to enjoy every moment, you know, and set realistic goals. You know, I don't think it's, I mean, maybe you can graduate and get an amazing dream job and stuff, but for me at the time, that was my dream job. It was great. So yeah, just live through the experience, I think,
Absolutely.
and let it take you.
Yeah. All right, so imagine you're walking down the street and you come upon, let's say, your 12, 13-year-old self. First thing I would be like, why are you wearing that? But that's what, maybe one nugget of advice would you give to yourself? Stephanie, go for it.
One piece of advice would be the decisions that you make today will impact your tomorrow. So always be mindful of that. You know, time flies and everything will either flourish or come bite you in the butt. So yeah.
Maddox, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I guess I would tell myself to like live in the moment, like enjoy every day that you have, and like especially like high school. Like high school's fun, guys. Like live it up. Like you don't have as many responsibilities to do in high school as you will like eventually when you get into like the workforce. So like definitely enjoy every day and just like that's probably like my little.
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant. I think in high school, especially those of you that are seniors or juniors moving into that senior world, it's like there's so much pressure that I think we put upon ourselves to sort of have it figured out and to know what the next step is going to be. And you forget that really it can be, not for everybody, but it can be a really special time, right? And so enjoy it, learn from it. Alexa, you're seeing the 12-year-old Alexa walking down the street. What are you saying to her?
I would say, it's funny because I feel like all these things I'm saying are all cliches, but I'm like, they're clear cliches for good reason. Because what I would say is honestly, like, be yourself. Like, just be, and that's, I think, something that comes with life and age and learning too. But, like, I remember always trying to feel like I had to subscribe to, like, a box. And who am I? What am I into? But I'm like, no, it's interesting to be a bunch of things. Like, be into all the things you're into. Like, lean into all of it. Like, I'm like, I was rehearsing this before, and I'm like, what do I like? I'm like, you could like Britney Spears and the Misfits, and be a bikini beach girl, and be really smart, and be a business owner, and do all this stuff, and like be yourself, and like let your freak flag fly. Like just try and embrace who you are, whatever that is. So that's what I would tell my younger self.
Yeah, I love that.
And that it's gonna be okay.
And that it's going to be okay. And there's also something to be said for that evolution that we all have as part of sort of just life stages, right? You may think you are in this particular box at one point in your life, and then 10 years down the road, your life is dramatically different. Yeah, that's okay. Leading into it.
Change is good.
Yeah. Thomas?
I think I would probably start with like winning lottery numbers.
Yeah.
For sure.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, I'm with you on that for sure. I thought that was sort of understood.
Yeah, I just wanted to, nobody said it yet, so. No, I think I would keep walking. I don't know if I would say anything. I think that there's an immense amount of beauty in figuring shit out by yourself.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris. And yeah, I don't think I would do anything that would influence myself. I think that the beauty of tripping and falling and not understanding things and not being yourself and figuring out you should be yourself and all of those other things are things that the beauty of it comes in learning it yourself through failure, through all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, that one was up. I didn't think anybody was gonna say that, but I came up with a question. I love that, yeah, it's that whole sort of time traveler notion, like you just don't wanna like mess up the whole universe. Eat yourself up. What do you think, Isabella?
So like what I would tell my 12-year-old self is what I tell my 3-year-old students every day, all day. You're gonna be okay. You really are gonna be okay. I know the days can feel like gloomy, and being that age, you're, starting to deal with like growing up and peer pressure and bullying and being bullied or just things like that. And it's gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay. And I wish my 12-year-old self would have known that, because I think I would have taken things a little different and not have to deal with things now. So we're all gonna be okay.
Yeah, that's true. Nina?
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know what I would say. I love like the leave you alone answer. Yeah, I think that I would probably just like not intervene. And that's because my urge is to like look them in the eyes and be like, I am you from the future. Like this is like what? Like on this day at this time, like you mess up. But that's not true. That's not the reality. And I think that, I guess if I was giving advice, it would be like slow down as well. I think that it's important to be very conscious of the moment, but also to like life is very much the longest thing you'll ever do. And there's kind of like this balance between everybody being like, life is short, like insert like slew of things that like come after that saying, but like in reality it's the longest thing you do. You have to be with yourself for every second that you're alive. Right. So like, get comfortable, get comfortable and slow down.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you guys. Are there any questions, Ms. Mullen?
There is a question. Do you find that where you attend school is where you end up? So basically, I guess this is for the people who graduated from college. Did you end up where you went to school?
Is everybody tracking on that? Yeah. Isela, you have a hand up.
And I guess why? The university didn't ask why, but why?
So I go to school in CUNY Lehman College in the Bronx, and I have been offered an abundant amount of opportunities. Working in the DOE in New York City, working as a professor. This semester I took a lecturer, professor mentor role. I have had so many opportunities to stay within the Bronx or just New York City. So yeah, I mean, it's because I'm so involved and my sense of community. I have people that just think of me when other opportunities arise, and that's why it's so important to be involved. Because that opportunity, that job, that professor job, that could have been offered to anybody else, but it was offered to me because I made myself known. I'm out there, and that's why it is so important. Get involved, get to know people, make yourself known.
So not to tell too many of Isela's secrets, but she and I met at an event of Lehman College Foundation a couple months ago. It was a room full, the college president was there, it was a room full of philanthropic folks, adults, and Isela shared her story, and she was comfortable and confident, and I thought, man, she's just the right person to be part of the panel today. And the fact that she said yes, and she, I think, is a great example of being open to those opportunities. So.
And thank you. And on my way here, driving here, I was like, wow, this is really nice. Like, you invited me being there that night. It was beautiful. It was up on like almost like the top of a.
Yeah, it was the fancy place.
Yeah, the view. There was. That's awesome. Yeah.
You just met. Yeah. You ended up here. Like you never know who you're gonna be.
That night, I said thank you guys for inviting me. Like, little me would have never thought like I would be here. Like, who am I to be here? So thank you.
Yeah, I can add too. I think like different schools can offer different sets of opportunities. But I don't think a school, like, it's never a barrier. Like, you're never gonna not be able to get somewhere because you went to a certain school. But I think, like, sometimes it can give you an edge, or like maybe like the network of the alumni and the connections that they have are really advantageous. So I feel like it can help you, but it's not gonna prevent you. I think that's
Right. Well, and not to put you on the spot, Maddox, but Maddox is a personal friend. His auntie is my best friend. And so I, of course, had to twist his arm to have him come here. But the one thing that I know about Maddox is that he is brilliant at networking. And I think that it's not only sort of what opportunities are there at a particular school, or, you know, individual schools have their own culture, right? But it's give yourself some credit because you're actually taking advantage of that. You're seeking out those connections. And that's a really critical piece. I think we all everybody sort of talked about that at the beginning, as sort of the value of sort of that transition and surviving, if you will, that transition into adulthood is creating community for yourself. And you have to work at that. You have to be intentional with that.
I think that as someone, so like I'm not from New Paltz, but I did go to school here, and I never thought, if you told me I was gonna live here, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Because I also like didn't know it existed before I went to school here. But I think that you have a lot of time in college, and you have a lot of time when you're an adult, right? Like you have kind of like this different schedule that isn't like 7 to 3 or like whatever the high school day is like. And basically that is yours. It's the first time where you're like, okay, I'm just gonna like use this how I want, and it's just like completely in your hands. And I think that for some folks, there's this very like natural inclination to be within the environment that you went to college at, but then for others, you might be like, where am I? Like, what did I just do? Like, what's going on? And that being said, if you feel either way, it's important to like explore and travel, right? Because similar to what you're saying, like you never know where you're gonna end up, you don't know who you're gonna meet, and the more space you give yourself to try different things, the less it'll feel like something like is forced, right? Like staying in the area that you went to school can start to become like a vortex, I think. I don't know if anyone else can speak to this experience, but there's definitely like situations where you can be like, okay, like what is gonna be next? Like I'm in this zone. But the more space you give yourself to like breathe outside of that, or just know that that's really a phase in your life, the more freedom you have to like understand that you don't have to assimilate to that environment, and it doesn't have to be the job that like is given to you like most easily or through this connection, whatever. And just know that there's like so much more out there for you. But it's really up to you. I love this area, like I'm so happy to be here, but also if I ended up in Europe tomorrow, you'd be like, oh, okay, like that's what she's doing now.
There is another question.
Great.
Which kind of tacks on to you talking about Maddox. What made you interested in talking at this event? Like, why did you aside from people twisting your arms and all that stuff,
I'm so happy to do it, it's awesome.
why did people, I guess it's anyone who wants to answer, but why did you want to be here? Go ahead.
I think that, I hope that people realize that, like, there's so many different avenues that you could go down. And I hope to fill that void of being, or not void, I hope to fill the spot of being like, if you want, I just remember being like, you don't want to be an artist, good luck with that. Like people would always, hard getting a job with that, you'll never make a lot of money. There was like all these like, things that people would say. So it's possible. And I think what I really want to say is that your career doesn't always have to be like how you're making money at the time. Like you could have a job that just like pays your bills and you spend your days doing what you really love. Like that's what you do. That's the thing that defines you. So I think that even if I didn't own a business, I would want to come and say that. I think. I don't know. So I think that's what I mean. But it's hard to remember.
Thomas, why did you say yes?
I think I had a fairly unique approach after high school. And I just like very much so was pressured into going to college, and that was very much so the path that I was pushed towards. But ever since I was a kid, it was very much so like, I'm not going to do that. And there's a lot of opportunity in this world without college, especially now. You know, the internet has literally made it so much easier to do anything that you want, learn anything you want, whatever. And then also another big thing, I also knew my goal, and it was a big wake-up thing for me in high school.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
and it wasn't bad to go do something I didn't want to do. So, yeah.
Stephanie, why did you say yes?
I said yes because I wish that we had this when I was a teenager. Just the outreach alone, the meaning behind the Maya Gold Foundation. You know, it's so much that teens go through. We don't feel that we can talk to adults, not realizing that they've been there, they've done that, you know. And also, parents aren't really, or we feel that they're not understanding. So it's good to have a program where you can hear other people's experiences. So I'm all for it. You know, I've been there, I've struggled, I've been at my lowest, but you know, you do make it to the other side. You are going to be okay, and yeah, I'm just happy to be here. So.
Nina, some thoughts?
I definitely love a chit chat. I also, my passion is in community work. My passion is in conversation and discussion and education, and it's a really, I think, special thing whenever we get to like communicate with the community or our youth in general. And I think the other thing is that I always hope that I can be like, I'm an aunt, and like I always envision myself as the aunt that like you can like bring in the corner and be like, what's good, like what's actually happening. So I think that that is a role that like I'm really thankful to play, and just love to provide any sort of insight whenever I can.
I just wanted to remind people that if you have a question, aside from shouting it out, which is also acceptable, but there's a QR code in case anybody wants to use that, and there's also paper somewhere. If anybody else wants to ask a question, limited time left.
Yeah. Maddox, do you have some thoughts about sort of other than pressure?
Yeah, I think like the foundation's like really impactful, and I kind of wanted to contribute my time, and like I thought it would be like a really nice thing to do. And I remember, like, I feel like I was in your shoes like 3 or 4 years ago, and like it would have been nice to hear like from people like on their journeys and stuff like that.
Right.
So I thought it would be like I could bestow some wisdom maybe, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. You saw that, do you have some more thoughts on this?
So I had actually like mentioned this to I had mentioned earlier that I had an ex-coworker, the older lady I worked with. I had told her like, wow, I wish, because she saw me from the beginning when I was in high school making up classes because I was not going to graduate because of gym. I wasn't the best student. I wish I could go back and change that. But I had told her like, I wish I could have the opportunity to like tell younger people like, just try and do better for yourself, because only you could do for you, you know? So when you offered this to me, I texted her real quick. I was like, look what I was just offered. When you put it out there, it happens. So there was no way I was going to pass this up. And just a little bit of wisdom that I can give you guys. I hope you do, it helps you. You're going to be okay.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Any more questions? Anybody want to have a question that they're just dying to ask? You can go ahead and stand up and shout it out. Oh, there's one more coming through.
There's another question.
Yay!
For those of you who went to college, how did you navigate the transition from high school to college? Like, a lot of people already spoken about that, but just to, I guess, elaborate a little bit.
It's
Yeah.
fresh in your mind, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely like new, like living on your own. You're in like a dorm, like you're around like I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 kids that are like your age, and it's fun, but like it's easy to, you got to make sure you're like on track with your classes, and you're holding yourself responsible, because no one else is there to like make sure you're doing everything like maybe in high school or like in school. But yeah, so I feel like it was transition, but I think like after the first semester you kind of get more settled, there's all new people and you have to make friends, but once you kind of like find your place in school, I think it goes by fast, and it's enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah, I think sort of finding your place, finding your tribe, finding your community, I think is really critical.
And just to go off of what you said about the fun, because I feel like I'm all about fun, have fun. But not like frivolous, unsafe, crazy fun, like live your life fun. But I think that, oh my God, I just had a point I was gonna make and I can't remember. Oh, if I could go back in time. Because I feel like when you go to college and you were just in high school and you're like, I'm so used to having to like impress my teachers. I'm just doing this because I have to be here and I have to get good grades because my parent, whatever. And I feel like I wish if I could go back in time, I would think more of college as like, I'm the customer. Like, I'm paying to be there. What do I want to get out of this? What do I want to learn?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's your time and you don't have to go. So if you could, take advantage of the resources that you are paying for, like, what do you want to get out of it? So,
Yeah, that's great advice.
yeah.
Really good advice. What about you guys?
Oh my God, I had it go. What's the question? I had it in my head.
I know, it's hard to
I know, it's all sorts of things.
How did you navigate the transition from high school to college?
Okay, yes, from high school to college. Staying organized, because it's like when you come out of high school into college and you have your own schedule. You may have all morning classes and you have your whole day free, or all night classes, you have your whole morning free, and that's so odd. But if you stay organized and have your things set up, it makes it a little easier. And like I said earlier, having a sense of community, having your people, that helps. Like I mentioned to Sarah, I'm in the Mexican Student Society, and this semester I was as a VP. I think because of that, I'm so sad of graduating and leaving, but it's like, okay, it's okay. Like, I did what I had to do, but it made it go like this. So that's a good suggestion. Get involved, do something in college.
I think that I feel like I could say 100 million things. Also because I taught freshman college for 2 years, so I've seen it on both ends. In terms of schoolwork, like, you know yourself best. Like, it's not a joke. Obviously, hustle. Keep it together. Otherwise, I think that a huge part of it is remembering that, like, you're gonna be, even if you, like, transfer whatever, the space that you're gonna be in is one that you're in for a while, right? Like, there's kind of, like, orientation and, like, this huge spark of, like, who's who am I, what am I gonna wear, like, what's going on? And then you're there for years. And so it's just really important to, I think, stay grounded in order to have a smooth transition, because you have to be transitioning, like, from a place, so, like, know kind of, like, what direction you're moving in, if that makes any sense. And I think the other part of it is to just make sure that, like, the transition that you go through is yours. I think that integrity never goes out of style. People really, like, don't talk about integrity enough. And I think that when you're in college, it's kind of like this opportunity to be, like, so fresh and so new, and that's incredible. But just also know that, like, you're gonna continue to change. This isn't something that has to just come with, like, this new era, right? Like, tomorrow could be a new era, which is exciting. And the other fact of it is that, like, everyone around you also has no idea what they're doing. So, like, even if somebody comes up to you and is like, I'm super confident, like, this is what's good, we don't know what that person is like. You've just met them at orientation. So I think it's important to just, like, stay true to yourself, both in terms of, like, your person, but also in terms of, like, what your gut says, right? Like, in terms of, like, very genuine day-to-day, like, decision making. Because there's a lot of pressure in a lot of, like, ways that I didn't think was possible before I got to college.
So there's a couple of questions about financial support and how you kind of managed your lives, financially, and supported yourself after high school. So there were a couple of questions having to do with that kind of practical.
Does anybody want to tackle that question? Go for it.
I ate a lot of eggs. Like, had a full egg diet for a while. Yeah. I know it's a luxury. A lot of it for me, I mean, I didn't go to college, and I really just wanted to make the opportunity for myself. So for the first year or two out of high school, it was a struggle. It was a lot of doing literally anything you could to make money, right? And to pay rent and to buy the things you need to buy. But it's something that, once again, I didn't have, high school didn't teach me anything about taxes, anything financial. Like, I got very minimal of that. So a lot of it was just figuring stuff out. I used the internet, tried learning as much stuff as I could, and just put myself in a situation where I had to figure it out. And I quickly, not quickly, but a year or two in, got it under control, and doing better now. So.
Anybody else want to talk a little bit about sort of the whole financial aspect of adulting?
I'm still figuring it out. I don't want to sit here.
I can jump in because I don't like to not have money, and I think that there's a lot of something that's very real about college is that a lot of people don't, and I definitely don't come from a position of privilege, which I think created the mindset for me that was I always need to have money. I can't be one of these I got $2 in my bank account that was not a thing that was an option for me. So I was definitely working 3 jobs and doing 2 majors, really going full tilt. But in terms of making money, do something that is gonna make your brain feel good and your body feel good, right? Because making money is a really unfortunate necessity in a lot of ways. It's rarely oh, I'm so excited to do this odd job. It might start that way, but so for me, knowing that I was really academic heavy, it was nice to do something like waitressing because it was I could just BS at the table, I'm running around. It felt like such a good balance. Versus now I work a really desk heavy job as well, and I'm damn, I wish I could get out in the world. Or vice versa, if you do something that's really physical or strenuous, you have to stay up long hours, like an art major or a science major because you have labs. Be cognizant of how tired you might be and do something like a library clerk that's very chill. Opportunities through school are really great, but also do things that have I think really good skill transfer, right? Putting yourself in a position where you learn skills that can be applied to different jobs, service is really great, but also putting yourself in a position where there's always an abundance or a need. Because then that way, if you want to transfer schools and you end up in a new small town, you always have that option to do those odd jobs. And then you also have life skills. I think that working while you're in school is such a stressor at the time, but then when you start to get older, you realize how valuable those skills were, but also just the life lessons that you encountered in those environments. So be in spaces that make your brain and your body feel good in that way, because you do have to work, unfortunately.
Anybody else want to talk a little bit about finances or? Okay.
I'll add one thing. I'm not a financial advisor, but start a Roth IRA right now. Just gonna say that. You're gonna respect yourself in 50 years.
Financial aid, I feel that's a big thing. I remember getting over surplus checks from financial aid that I could live off of and get groceries and stuff like that. And then campus jobs. Yeah, but if you get a job in a restaurant, you're gonna be set. I'm not saying you're gonna be set for life, but it's gonna prepare you for so much. So yes, piggybacking. Get things that give you skills for life.
Yeah. I don't know if you are juniors or seniors, but definitely don't rule out schools based upon the sticker price in college.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times schools have really expansive financial aid packages. So typically the sticker price isn't actually what a lot of people pay.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah,
That's important.
Sorry, wait, last one. Save money. I feel recently out of school, but everybody, I was always the girl who had to work or whatever. My friends are sick now because they never saved money, and it feels this thing where you have to kind of keep up, and you want to do all the fun things and you want to whatever, but you have to deal with yourself tomorrow. So think of your future self, even if it's just that last drink or that shirt that you really want. It's always going to be at the place that you're partying, or it'll be at the store, or you'll find something else that you like. So restraint pays off in a lot of situations financially.
And be easy on the credit card, because they're gonna get you, and you're gonna get letters in the mail that they want you to open credit cards, and you're gonna be this is free money, and then you're gonna be screwed up, so be careful.
Yeah. I think we can have a whole session about credit card management. Are there any other questions that came through? Or
two that I can kind of smush together.
Perfect, yeah.
So basically, how did you decide what to pursue in life, and how did that, I guess, how does that connect to how you define success? So I'm putting two things together, and you could also peel them apart if you want. I just didn't want to leave anybody's question.
Stephanie, go for it.
Can you repeat that one more time?
I can try. So how did you decide what to pursue in life, and how does that connect to how you define success? So basically, how do you define success,
Right.
and have you been
Okay.
doing what you've been doing to lead to that? I
Yes.
guess.
Okay.
Something. Let's try.
So lately, my path is to, I'm a realtor, and also I do lashing, pursuing aesthetics. So me, I am a bubbly person. I like to talk to people. It all fits in with my customer service. So I define that as successful because I make my own schedule. I'm on social media, which is like my favorite thing to do. And it's flexible. You know, I have kids. It works with me. So it works with me. I like being my own boss. I like handling my own schedule. I like to take off. I like to take vacations, and honestly, that the freedom is what I find successful. So.
Anybody else want to, was it a lot of head nods on that one, the notion of freedom?
I can take it, yeah. I guess I would define success as like living a happy and fulfilling life. I don't like success isn't how much money you make or like how famous you are, but I think it's like whether or not you're happy. So I feel like that should be like the priority when you're thinking about what you want to do. So I guess like for me, like I always loved like learning, and I'm really like analytical. So I think it's kind of influenced me to like I want to go into like it's called like asset management and like investing in companies and learning about companies, and like the job is like you're basically just like studying a company and studying an industry, and you're learning about it and making a decision based upon that. So I feel like that's kind of what has led me that way. I don't really know if I'll end up liking it or maybe doing something else, but I guess like do like something you think you'll enjoy based upon like the quality that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I ended up where I am because I was hell-bent determined to make a living working for myself and somehow being creative and creating art and being in that world. And I went through many manifestations and now has eventually landed where I am now, making mostly merchant apparel. And at the moment, it's not the most lucrative job, but I am extremely happy and I love my life and I spend my days doing what I love doing. So that's my success story. I'm happy. Thank you.
Yeah, I think success is, scratching the itch that itches the most, and whatever that means to you. It's definitely freedom. I super agree with that. It's just whatever you want to do the most, and whatever can get you to doing whatever you want to do the most. For me, I think I was very lucky. I was super into music. It was something that I always really loved, so it was an easy decision for me to make a lot of the decisions that I've made. But you also got to find where that lives, because I started in the music world, and now it's a lot more focused on business building and building systems that work and whatever it might be. So, yeah.
Like you said, mine would be the happiness part, like I mentioned earlier. That's why I chose teaching, because educating children, working with children, not having to work with so many adults that have big opinions. That to me, I'm like, all right, these couple years that I've sacrificed in college, it's gonna be worth it, and I'm setting up my path to be happy. And that's successful to me.
I think that being successful is joy and comfort, but I think it's also like excitement and evolution. Like I think that so much of what makes me feel like I'm doing like the right thing, or like makes me feel successful, is that when I have like a desire, like my desire feels fueled, not like just satiated. And that'll probably change like as I get older, I'm thinking, or hope. because then I'll do less. But I think that success really just looks like the continuation of like all of the things that make you excited to like live life and like keep going in whatever direction you're going. Because otherwise you like know that it's not what you want to do.
I think that those are perfect words to end on. So I was, of course, going to the Google, quotes about life transitions, quotes about high school graduation, quotes about, you know, sort of the evolution. So E.E. Cummings says that it takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. And this is just, and I'm adding on to that, so be brave. So I want to thank you guys so much for being so thoughtful and enthusiastic and, if, you know, and willing to just spend the time with us this afternoon. Really, really appreciate it. And if everyone could join me in giving them a round of applause. So that concludes the panel portion of the program. We do have, as Elise mentioned, we have some drinks and little nibbles, and we would love for you to stick around and follow up on, you know, with any questions that you might have of the individual panelists, or just get to know each other and mingle. So thank you all so much for coming out on such a beautiful day. Appreciate it.